From stockboy to store owner to brand mogul, Ronnie Fieg mastered the limited edition sneaker drop and then replicated the same approach with his white-hot lifestyle brand, KITH. This is his blueprint. Tell me about the significance of Queens in informing everything about how you think about the world.
Growing up in Queens, it's like the #1 melting pot in the world, right? That's what shaped my childhood and influenced me to become who I am. You know, it was the most important time in my life, just hearing things for the first time, seeing things for the first time and learning, you know, like just like being a sponge. So my sister would work in the city and she would put me on to things. I remember she used to wear like shearling jackets and Timberland hiking boots with the tags still out in the boots. Like that was a thing that was happening in the city, and she'd get like laughed at in school just the way I would get laughed at later when I was bringing things in. When I started working in the city at age 13, 14, I started wearing like Royal Suede Wallabies and New Balances, and Queens was like a little late to the game with that. But Queens also had its own style that I would bring to the city whenever I would go out, and like the Tommy Polo Nautica moment, you know, Carl Kanai, cross colors, like all of that was very much in effect.
You have your bar mitzvah, David Z shows up, offers you the requisite envelope of cash, and you turn it away, instead asking for a job.
Right.
Why?
He was that dude growing up that like, you know, everybody in the family like just wanted to be. He was like the coolest dude I knew. And he was like my idol. I saw this guy like owned his own stores, did whatever he wanted to do. I was intrigued by that at a really young age. I thought that that was like something that I can do. You know, I used to see the store and like see how people were interacting there, and the music and the culture and like things I would see there, and it was way different than what I was seeing in Queens. I mean, I was really young, but I wanted a job. I wanted to start working there. I wanted to see what life was like outside of like, you know, my neighborhood. Luckily, he gave me the shot. I learned the business from the bottom up. So started in the stock room, and I would have it no other way. I got to learn about the product, be one-on-one with product. It was a hard job that I really loved and I was really passionate about. I was 13 years old, taking the subway after school on a Friday for just a couple of hours that I could get in, then go Saturday and Sunday by myself. You know, and back then it wasn't so safe on the subways.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So, and there were some moments where things got kind of ugly, but I wasn't willing to give that up. That was what made me me. I was learning more from what I was seeing in the space than what I was learning in school. It made me realize that the world was a lot bigger than where I was. At age 15, I was now helping every dope celebrity. I was working on 8th Street, and I don't know if you remember, but 8th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue was like the most influential block in America.
Totally.
So like on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, they'd have like all the cars would show up, you know, and they'd all park on 8th Street. Like some would even park diagonally because they couldn't all fit, and the cops would let it ride. It was everyone at the time, like Diddy, when no one else had it. Like no one's ever had it like Diddy, but Diddy's whole camp. So like Mace was always on the block, Big would always show up, Jay was coming every Saturday, you know, Missy Elliott, Busta Rhymes was there all the time. It was the era before everybody really blew up.
Well, this is also before like influencer marketing or...
Yeah, it was way before that. So like they were going there for like their own...
personal shopping, right?
Yeah, man. And it was like everybody had their own, just their own taste and their own like individual style back then.
As you rise up the ranks at David Z, you make your first foray into design. You're able to secure a collaboration for a capsule collection with ASICS.
I opened the account, the ASICS account for David, and business was really good with ASICS through the Onitsuka Tiger category. Mike McLaughlin, who's a good friend still today, 10 years later, offered me the ability to work on a shoe out of the archive. He actually let me open up old catalogs, and I saw a shoe that I once had when I was younger. When I really wanted a pair of Reebok pumps, my mom bought me a pair of July 3s, and it was really upsetting at first, but I fell in love with them, wore them till they had holes in the soles, and then I wanted to go back and get another pair, and they were discontinued. So then when I saw them in the catalog, you know, I was like, oh shit, I want to bring those back. So we made 750 pairs.
How confident were you when you like put in the order for them that you were going to sell out?
Not confident. Not confident. I just knew that I really wanted to do it, and then from there I would need to build it and build a following for the shoe, not for myself, because I was working for David at the time, so I wasn't interested in promoting myself. Actually, it was in print in Complex. I had a friend in Complex, convinced her to take a look. It got printed there, and then the party was with Complex on Fifth Avenue. We sold 50 pairs out of the 756, and I was like, I'm gonna lose my job over this, because David wasn't happy that I did this without working with David on it, because I knew that he wouldn't want to do it. He wasn't uncomfortable with the athletic business, because it was starting to pick up. That was a big step, you know what I'm saying, into bringing back like retro joggers. It was like, it was non-existent.
He was a boot guy, basically?
He was, I mean, he's known for being the boot and brown shoe guy. And then when business transitioned into athletics, he was definitely, you know, he was definitely seeing it and wanting to support it for sure. But like, I didn't want to bring that to him because I didn't feel like he would support that. It was a big ask. It was 756 pairs. But what I had on my side was ASICS supporting me because they just really liked me for what I was able to do on the business side. For the business that we did with Onitsuka, they were able to, you know, give me the leverage and give me the leeway of taking things back if it didn't sell. But it still costs money. It still impacts the brand or the retailer when you have to receive 756 pairs and put them in all the stores. It still costs money to do that, you know? So David wasn't happy with that when he saw them come in, because that was the first time he heard about it, is when he saw the shoes actually come in. It was a do or die situation for me. You know, like I had to sell the pairs, otherwise I potentially would have lost my job. So I had to go out there and make sure that they sold. So the first 50 pairs sold. The next day, like I sold like 6 or 7 pairs in the store, and I'm like, all right, it's over for me, you know? Somebody came by the store and I had a conversation with him about everything I'm telling you, and the next thing you know, the next morning I get a call from my mom because my dad reads the Wall Street Journal, and she saw the cover, on the cover of the Pursuit section, the picture of the shoe was like right next to the title, Pursuits. So like there was a picture of one of the shoes, and my mom was like bugging out on the phone. I was like, what's up? She's like, Wall Street Journal. She was like bugging out that the shoe was there, my name was mentioned. That morning that the Wall Street Journal released, there was like, I got to the store and there was a line like around the block. And then within 2 days, all the shoes were gone. All 756 pairs were gone.
Ronnie's run of successful collaborations demonstrated his knack for building creative partnerships. But more important, it created a platform for him to become his own boss.
I think the hardest part of the job for me, and still the hardest thing that I do, is just like build things or buy into things that I think the consumer is going to want 6 months after you start working on them, either from the buying side or from the production side. You know, like when we go and create apparel, you have to understand what it's like to be a risk taker, but be experienced enough to understand the cycles and know what's been gone long enough where people will want it if it comes back, just because it'll be different enough when it does. When I was working on the shoes that I was bringing back out of the archive, people were like, oh, he's just like, this is like an ID situation. It's not like he's working on product. What is he actually doing but bringing the product back? And I was like, I'm bringing the product back. That's what I'm doing. Like I'm offering you something that wasn't offered in the market beforehand. And then I'd put my spin on it based on materials and colorways of what I would want for myself. People had a hate-love relationship with what I was doing in the beginning when I first started working on collaborative, you know, projects.
In a lot of those early collaborations, and as you sort of entered onto my radar and Joe's radar at Complex, a lot of that stuff was branded as Ronnie Fieg times Sebago times ASICS. And then eventually, after a couple of years, the brand KITH started popping up. How did you think about the use of your own name as a brand and then the development of KITH as an idea?
The reason why my name was entered is because what else was being sold at David Z. I wanted to separate the product that I was working on from what else was being sold there, because I wanted it to be special, because that was my taste level. That's what I was most passionate about.
So at this point, do you have your own LLC, or is this all through David and you're just an employee?
It's all through David, you know, and I'm an employee. And yeah, all of a sudden it's building and it's becoming like a substantial business. I was working on all the special projects for David Z, and they were all labeled after my name.
So what was the tipping point that made you sort of go out on your own, start KITH?
I wanted to build product for people like me who were into like special projects and special product that were limited, you know, so that they could be different. And my passion for building just is growing out of control. Like I just want to build. Like I'm only interested in building now.
Is there a moment that you feel like you sort of crossed over the threshold and you're like, okay, when the salmon toe came out, that was when I had sort of entered into this next phase of my...
Well, the salmon toe was when I first opened KITH. The salmon toe and the leatherback, right, which were both released at KITH, were part of a series of 4 shoes that I designed in the same time. So when I left David Z, I made a deal with David that those 2 were gonna leave with me.
Okay.
And then I released the Mint Leaf July 3 at David Z, and then I moved to KITH to open up KITH with both locations. One got salmon toe and the other got leatherback. I think that was the beginning of a new era for me.
You leave David Z.
Yeah.
And at that moment, you've made enough noise that I would imagine there were doors opening brands, at retailers, whether it's Foot Action or Nike or Reebok, wherever.
That's a great point. I had opportunities with 2 brands, 3 brands, and a retailer. I had to make a hard choice, you know, and it wasn't an easy one to make. It was the most risk I've ever taken in my life. And it was leaving a place that I worked for 15 years.
How hard was that conversation with David?
As difficult as a conversation can get. It was a necessary one. And I just had a bigger vision, you know, I had a different vision from him. You know, he was more about the business and I was more about creating.
So how did you know Sam?
Sam is a close family friend. Sam owned Atrium. Before that, he owned Renaissance, and it was near the shops, near the David Z shops. And he started Project Show, the trade show. And I would go and I would shop because he would have some brands that we would carry at David Z. And I used to see him here and there. We'd have some conversations, great conversations. And, you know, he saw me and recognized the talent and heard good things from the industry and like wanted to take a chance with me. And he was opening Atrium in Brooklyn at the time and offered me to come and do the footwear portion of Atrium in Brooklyn. And I said no to that. I was unhappy where I was at the moment, you know, and I think a lot of people knew that. I wanted to do more. I just wanted more, you know, and I felt like I had a lot to offer. Sam definitely heard that and knew that. And, you know, one day we had a conversation, a long conversation, and, you know, and we made a decision that I was gonna open up a new shop adjacent to Atrium with our own entrance in both locations, Brooklyn and Manhattan. He's one of my favorite people on this planet. He was the best man at my wedding. He's a mentor to me. He's been in the industry a very long time, and he's a really smart guy, you know, and he invested in me early, and that was the beginning of KITH.
Sam had offered you to run the footwear part of Atrium in Brooklyn. You meet with him, you counter with, I'd like to open my own store within your store with its own door.
Yes.
That's a fairly aggressive ask.
The only way I was gonna leave what I was doing for starting my own business and not go anywhere else was if it was gonna happen exactly the way I wanted it to happen. I told Sam exactly what it is I wanted to do, and you know, he was into it, you know, and he believed in it, you know, so he invested in me. It was hard. It was really, really, really difficult. I remember sleeping in the store for 7 straight days, no shower, building the store with the contractor. That was tough, you know, it was tough in the beginning. We were able to make magic happen, you know, and it was great. And I think that really what separates everything is passion. If you're passionate enough about anything, you can make anything happen, literally anything happen.
When you open that store, it's twofold, right? You're not only opening an entirely new property in terms of a storefront, you're also launching a brand.
We launched a brand 2 years later, or like a year and like 8 months later. How?
Yeah, well, what prompted that?
I got a pair of washed camo Scotch and soda pants for my birthday. I didn't really wear Scotch and soda as a brand, but I liked this fabric and this pant. It was like this washed camel. It was really, really well done in terms of the fabric. And it was this like twill army pant, and I put it on, and it was like, it didn't fit right. But I knew I wanted to do something with the pant, so I took it to my tailor, and I was like, I want you to elasticate the cuff. I want you to slim down the leg and really taper it out. And I just made this custom pair, and then I started wearing that pant around, and everybody kept asking me about the pant. I was always wearing fresh kicks on, obviously. I always had like a dope pair of kicks on, and everyone was asking me about my pants. So I was like, all right, like this is like a thing. I went to the garment district and I put together the same pant. Like I made a pattern out of the pant, and then I went and I made a few. We started with one color, and I put 12 pairs in the store, and it sold out in a day. And I was like, it's weird. And I was like, somebody has to be fucking with me. Like, it's a shoe store. There's no apparel in the store except for this pant, one pant, right? So I was like, I'm gonna go to the store the next week. I made 24 more pairs and I put them in the store. And I was standing in the store, and I couldn't believe that like everybody was touching this pant and like wanting to try this pant. I didn't even name the pant yet. I went back and I made 100 pairs and put them in the store, and I called it the Mercer pant. They sold immediately, same day. So I was like, this is a thing, you know, I'm gonna go and like make 1,000 pairs of pants now and put them on the site. And I remember between the site and the store, they were gone immediately. And I was like, wow, that's so strong. Nobody could sell pants online. It was like very hard to sell pants online. Insanely tough to sell pants. But they all wanted this twill jogger, and like it didn't exist. I was the only one that made this pant that people wanted, you know, and I just wanted it for myself. That's why I made it. And that pant was just like the one. And it was like, okay, it made me realize that people wanted more from KITH. And KITH was just a store at the time. So it was like, do I make KITH a brand? Like, do I call it something else? It was decision time for me. And it was like, I remember having a conversation with Sam, and he was like, go for it, man. Just fucking go for it.
So how long did it take from that first pair of Mercer pants to you having sort of organized seasons and that kind of thing?
We're still not organized seasons. We still do things as we please, you know, because we don't have to cater to the way the wholesale calendar works. We don't work on a calendar, you know, because we don't wholesale the brand.
KITH is only available on your properties. It's totally vertically integrated. Why?
Because it was never even meant to happen. So now that it did happen, it's like, this is still my baby, and it's still meant to keep special, and it's not. Some things aren't meant to scale. Some things aren't meant to scale.
How long did it take until KITH, the brand, became the #1 selling brand in the KITH stores?
It happened relatively quickly after we started making those pants. Then it expanded into other categories in apparel. For the first time in a long time, I feel like really accomplished with what we've done, because I look at the team, and the team resembles that, you know, more than anything. It's crazy because it was never planned, and there's not a book for it. There wasn't a formula. It was really just being really passionate about what I wanted to do, and then all of a sudden it was an avalanche of decision making. You know, I feel like at one point I was the driver, like in the driver's seat, for the first like 3-4 years, and somehow I got like shifted to the passenger seat giving directions, and now like I'm in the back seat because the brand is like bigger than me. It's bigger than anyone at the brand. It's bigger than all of us at this point, for the employees that work at the brand. And at this point, it's just like I'm in the back seat trying to give the best directions possible and trying to contain it, and containing it has been the hardest work so far.
Though KITH has exceeded Ronnie's expectations, his focus is now on maintaining the brand's integrity in the face of an ever-expanding audience. When you talk about wanting to keep the brand small or not scale it necessarily, how big is big enough? You know, you're obviously a very ambitious and competitive person, so I would imagine you have a desire to dominate the marketplace.
The idea is not to compete. The idea is to maximize the potential of what I'm doing with doing it tastefully and not hurting the brand in the process. That's the goal. Everything that you see, and there are a lot of projects that we work on a year, but it's deciding what the right ones are for the brand at the time.
To that point, I imagine that you have to say no a lot.
A lot more then I say yes.
How do you make those decisions?
You know, I discuss everything with my team, but I feel strongly about certain things that we do, and really it's about what I can be passionate about. The way my thought process works on different projects is, it goes a few ways. One, is it missing in my closet, first and foremost? Two is, can I tell a real story? Is it gonna be authentic to me? And are people gonna like want to hear, want to learn, want to absorb the information that is being put out? And three is like, is it gonna sit well in the timeline? Will it be a notch in the timeline? Is it gonna be something that will stick out with our 10-year anniversary? Like, I think about 10 years, you know, we're hitting 6 now. I'm already thinking about the 10-year book, you know, thinking back on what we've done.
You may not want to dominate the marketplace, but you live in a marketplace with competitive peers, many of whom it seems as though you've really embraced and shown a lot of love to.
For sure.
How do you navigate the natural competition of capitalism with that, you know, familial, friendly relationship?
There's no competition. And I'm not saying that we're the best and we don't compete. I'm saying that I don't see anything as competition. Nothing stems from competition. You know, it all stems from wanting to do something. Maybe in the beginning, I was looking left and right, but at this point, it's such crazy tunnel vision. I support anything my friends do. If I was like watching what people were doing and trying to compete with what people were doing, then it would not be fun for me. It would be a job.
What is the most important thing for a new member of the KITH team to know in terms of working for Ronnie Fieg?
Work ethic on 1,000, and no matter what your job title will be, you're gonna be wearing many, many hats. Expect many things to get thrown at you, and you gotta be resilient. It's just that time for the brand right now where it's like, it's still not corporate in my office, even though we have an amazing office now. We're moving to a pretty big office in Soho, which I'm really proud of, but the team is like a very tight-knit crew. Even if we can afford to be bigger than we are, I wouldn't want to be.
So you've gone from managing probably a team of 5 or 10 when you first opened the store to now a team of 200. What do you think your biggest strength as a manager is, and what do you think your biggest weakness is?
My biggest weakness is that I hate being a boss. I've never enjoyed being a boss.
Why?
Because there are tough conversations that you have to have as a boss. You know, you consistently have to tell people what you need, what you want, and when they're not doing a good job, you need to let that be known. And when you have that many people that work for you, it becomes tougher. I think I'm a great leader, though. I think people that work for the brand enjoy working for the brand. And I always remind them that if it feels like a punch-in, punch-out situation, they shouldn't be there. And I think a lot of people take their work home. And yeah, I'm only looking for passionate people.
In year 6 of the business, you're in your mid-30s. Where do you feel like you are in the life cycle of the brand?
I don't see a life cycle for the brand. It doesn't, you know, all these terms and like how things are usually explained are based off of the way things were done in the past, the way things are usually done. But there isn't anything usual about like what we do. We're just who we are. Like, it's not a business built off of a business model of someone else's. We're writing our own book, literally. So it's like, where are we in the life cycle? I don't know. I feel like I just started.
Where are you then in your own personal ambition?
My personal ambition is to be the best that I can possibly be. I've never had a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 3 year, like I don't look at it that way. You know, right now I have to work way in advance so I know like what I want to do a year from now, because I have to know, you know, but I never think about how big will the brand be within the market 3 years from now? And what will that do to the rest of the market and to my own? I'm not trained to think that way. I took it one day at a time to get here. That's been the business model for me. And like, do we have the opportunities to go and become a global brand and be literally open in every city in the next year? Sure. Like every major city? Sure. We have a lot of great opportunities, you know, and just because it's a great opportunity in many people's eyes, it doesn't mean it's a great opportunity for me. I'm going where I want to be, where I think this brand should be, where I think it's going to be most impactful for the people that I'm looking to cater to. You know, and the growth, the organic growth of the brand has been able to sustain the business and like all the bills that are coming with it. So until there's a real stronghold on that side of things, we're going to continue doing what we do.
You talked about growing up, you know, your family not having money,
Right.
getting a job at 13.
Right.
But you now run your business from a place where money isn't the central preoccupation.
Right.
What does money mean for you?
I'm married now. I just got married, and you know, eventually we're gonna have a kid. And I have my parents that I will always take care of. So for me, it's like being able to support the people that I care about most. And I'm not that like flashy guy. I've gotten the balance between my mom and my dad, where my mom was into materialistic goods and my dad was like really against it, and just really taught me the value of a dollar. Don't spend just to spend and show, and don't do things just to do things. Make sure everything has meaning to it.
I'm sure that people have come around and tried to kick the tires and talk about either investing or acquiring KITH from you.
Yeah, of course.
Will that ever happen? Could that ever happen?
I have a folder where I drag those emails to, you know, for all the funds, you know. My goal is for my, you know, my son or my daughter to, you know, to get involved and do what I do, you know, to see if they're potentially going to be as passionate about this as I am. Because I do believe that it could be a generational thing, and that's the goal, to keep it in the family.